I'm Zoe, 34 years old, and I'm sitting at the most expensive restaurant in the city celebrating my 8th wedding anniversary. The crystal chandeliers cast soft light over our round table, where my husband Marcus, his mother Dorothy, his brother Tyler, and Tyler's wife Grace are raising their glasses in a toast. But as Tyler pulls out his phone to show everyone photos, I catch something that makes my blood freeze. Marcus slips a small vial from his jacket and pours clear liquid into my wine glass, while everyone looks away. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from, and please subscribe if you want to hear how this anniversary dinner turned into the most shocking night of my life. 8 years ago, I thought I'd found my fairy tale ending when I met Marcus at Mercy General Hospital. I was working as a registered nurse in the emergency department, pulling a double shift on a rainy Thursday night, when he walked in wearing an expensive charcoal suit that somehow still looked perfect despite the weather. He was there to visit a client who'd been in a car accident, and when our eyes met across the chaos of the ER, something just clicked. He came back the next day with coffee and a sheepish smile, claiming he needed directions to the cafeteria, even though we both knew he'd been to this hospital dozens of times for work. Marcus was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. At 36 now, he was a successful corporate lawyer at Preston and Associates, one of Connecticut's most prestigious firms. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room when he talked to me, leaning in with those intense brown eyes, like every word I said was fascinating. Our courtship was whirlwind romantic. Weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard. Surprise deliveries of peonies to my work, because he remembered I mentioned them once, handwritten notes left on my car windshield after long shifts. We married after just 1 year of dating in a beautiful ceremony at his family's estate in Greenwich. I remember standing in that designer wedding dress his mother Dorothy had insisted on paying for, looking out at 200 guests, most of whom I'd never met, and feeling like the luckiest woman alive. My own family was small, just my parents from Ohio and my sister from California. But Marcus's family seemed to embrace me, or so I thought at the time. The first few years were genuinely wonderful. We bought a colonial house in Westport with 4 bedrooms and a wraparound porch that I fell in love with the moment I saw it. Marcus would come home from work and find me in the garden. I'd started dirt under my fingernails and sun on my face, and he'd laugh, saying I looked happier than he'd ever seen me. When I got pregnant with Emma, now 6 years old, he cried actual tears of joy at the doctor's office. 2 years later, Noah arrived, and our family felt complete. I made the decision to leave full-time nursing when Noah was born. Marcus had suggested it, actually saying his salary was more than enough and the kids needed their mother. Looking back, I can see how he framed it as my choice when really he'd been planting seeds for months about how tired I looked, how the hospital shifts were too demanding, how the kids would benefit from having me home. But at the time, exhausted from juggling everything, it seemed like a relief. The changes started so gradually, I almost didn't notice them. 6 months ago, Marcus began working late more frequently, not just an hour or two, but coming home at 11 midnight sometimes, not at all claiming he'd crashed at the office. His phone, which used to lie carelessly around the house, suddenly had a passcode. His laptop, which I'd occasionally use to order groceries or check emails, now required a thumbprint he never quite got around to adding for me. Then there was Dorothy. My mother-in-law had always been particular, but lately she'd become insufferable. She started dropping by unannounced 3 or 4 times a week, always when Marcus wasn't home, always with little comments wrapped in false concern. The house looked a bit cluttered, didn't I think? The children seemed restless. Perhaps they needed more structured activities. Had I considered losing the baby weight yet? It had been 4 years after all. She'd run her manicured finger along surfaces, checking for dust, peek into my refrigerator, and sigh at the leftovers, suggest that maybe Emma's behavior issues at school stemmed from my lack of discipline. The Emma situation was particularly cruel because there were no behavior issues. Her teacher had called me in for a conference to tell me what a delight she was, how she helped other students, and showed remarkable empathy for her age. But when I shared this proud moment at dinner, Dorothy had turned to Marcus and said that teachers these days had such low standards, and perhaps they should consider private school where Emma would be properly challenged. Marcus had nodded thoughtfully, instead of defending our daughter or me. The financial control started about 3 months ago. Marcus announced he was restructuring our finances for tax purposes. The joint account I'd accessed freely for 8 years suddenly had restrictions. Large purchases needed his approval. The credit card I'd used for groceries and household expenses was canceled and replaced with one that had a $2,000 monthly limit. When I questioned this, he'd pulled out spreadsheets showing how much money we could save with better budgeting, making me feel foolish and wasteful, even though I'd always been careful with money. My sister Hannah called it financial abuse when I mentioned it during one of our phone calls, but I'd laughed it off. Marcus wasn't abusive. He never raised his voice, never lifted a hand. He was just stressed with a big case, and Dorothy was just a difficult mother-in-law. Every marriage had its challenges. 2 weeks ago, something happened that should have been my wake-up call. Marcus had insisted I get a complete physical, saying he was worried about my energy levels. He'd even made the appointment himself with a new doctor, not my usual physician. The doctor ran extensive blood work, did a full psychiatric evaluation, asking strange questions about my mental state, my sleeping patterns, whether I ever felt confused or disoriented. When I told Marcus the doctor found nothing wrong except slightly low vitamin D, he seemed almost disappointed. Then came the life insurance policy. Marcus presented it as responsible financial planning for the children's future. $2 million on each of us, he said, though I later found out his was only for $500,000. He needed my signature on multiple documents, which he presented during Noah's birthday party when I was distracted with cake and guests. I signed without reading them carefully, trusting my husband of 8 years. This morning, our anniversary morning, I'd woken up hoping things might be different. Maybe the distance between us was just a rough patch all marriages went through. I'd made his favorite breakfast, Belgian waffles with fresh strawberries, and kissed him goodbye with more warmth than I'd felt in months. He'd actually smiled. Really smiled at me for the first time in weeks, and suggested we celebrate at Le Bernardin that evening. My heart had soared until he added that he'd already invited Dorothy, Tyler, and Grace. Our anniversary dinner would be a family affair. When I gently suggested maybe we could do something just the two of us later, he'd frowned and accused me of trying to exclude his family, of not appreciating everything Dorothy had done for us. The fight that followed was brief but painful, ending with him storming out and me crying in the bathroom where the kids couldn't see. I'd spent the afternoon getting ready anyway, hoping to salvage something from the evening. I'd had my hair professionally blown out, something I hadn't done in months because of the budget restrictions. I wore the navy blue dress Marcus had bought me for my birthday 3 years ago, the one he used to say made my eyes look like the ocean. I'd applied makeup carefully, covering the dark circles that had become permanent fixtures lately. When Marcus came home to pick me up, he'd looked at me with something like regret in his eyes. For a moment, just a moment, he'd touched my cheek gently and said I looked beautiful. Then he'd added that I looked tired, that maybe I should consider seeing someone about possible depression. The whiplash of his mood changes left me dizzy. The drive to the restaurant was silent except for the radio playing softly. I watched familiar Connecticut scenery pass by, autumn leaves in full display, and wondered when my life had become so small, so controlled, so uncertain. The man driving beside me felt like a stranger wearing my husband's face. Le Bernardin was exactly the kind of place Marcus loved to show off, at all white tablecloths and waiters who appeared silently at your elbow. Dorothy had arrived before us, naturally already seated at the best table with a view of the harbor. She was wearing a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage, her diamonds catching the light every time she moved. She looked me up and down as we approached, her lips pursing slightly. "Zoe, darling," she said, air kissing my cheek with perfectly lined lips that didn't actually touch my skin. "That's the dress from 3 years ago, isn't it? How economical of you." Before I could respond, she'd already turned to Marcus, taking his hands in hers and examining him like he was a child she needed to inspect. "You look exhausted, sweetheart. Working too hard again. You know, Jennifer mentioned she saw you at the office past midnight last week. Such dedication." Jennifer. The name dropped like a stone into still water, sending ripples through my composure. Jennifer Walsh, daughter of Marcus's senior partner, Harvard law graduate, and recently divorced. Dorothy had been mentioning her constantly lately, little updates about Jennifer's cases. Jennifer's new apartment. Jennifer's spin class that Dorothy had started attending despite being 20 years older than everyone else there. Jennifer's so concerned about you, Dorothy continued, settling back into her chair with a satisfied smile. She said you've been handling the Morrison case brilliantly. Such a talented team you two make. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, adjusting his tie. Mother, it's our anniversary dinner. Can we not talk about work? Of course, darling. I was just saying how nice it is that you have such capable colleagues. Zoe, you must feel so relieved that Marcus has support at the office since you're so busy with the children. I was saved from responding by Tyler and Grace's arrival. Tyler, 2 years younger than Marcus, had inherited the same dark good looks, but none of the sharp edges. He hugged me warmly, genuinely, and I felt myself relax slightly. Grace, 5 months pregnant and glowing, squeezed my hand under the table in solidarity. She'd been dealing with Dorothy's passive aggression since she'd married Tyler 3 years ago. Sorry we're late, Tyler said, helping Grace into her chair. The doctor's appointment ran over. Want to see the latest ultrasound? He pulled out his phone eagerly, the proud father to be unable to contain his excitement. The grainy black and white image showed a perfect profile, tiny nose and lips visible even to my untrained eye. Dorothy cooed appropriately. Marcus leaned in with interest, and Grace started explaining what the doctor had said about the baby's development. It was in that moment, with everyone's attention focused on that small screen, that I saw my husband become someone I didn't recognize. His hand moved smoothly, practiced, from his jacket pocket. A small vial no bigger than a perfume sample appeared between his fingers. In one fluid motion, he unscrewed the top and tipped the contents into my wine glass, the clear liquid disappearing into the burgundy depths without a trace. My body went cold, then hot, then cold again. Every nerve screamed at me to react, to say something, to knock the glass over. But some deeper instinct, some primitive survival mechanism, kept me frozen in place with a bland smile on my face. I watched him pocket the empty vial and turn back to Tyler's phone, expressing appropriate uncle excitement about the baby's size. The waiter appeared to take our orders. Marcus ordered for me without asking, selecting the salmon I'd mentioned not liking just last week. He ordered the same wine for the table, making a show of being the gracious host. When the waiter left, Marcus raised his glass for a toast. To 8 wonderful years, he said, looking directly at me with those brown eyes I'd once trusted completely. And to many more to come. Everyone raised their glasses. Dorothy added, to family, with pointed emphasis. Tyler said, to love. Grace simply smiled and sipped her sparkling grape juice. I raised my glass to my lips, letting the wine barely touch them before setting it down. Marcus watched me intently. I need to use the restroom, I announced, standing perhaps too quickly. My napkin fell to the floor, and as I bent to retrieve it, I deliberately knocked into Dorothy's glass with my elbow. The wine splashed across the white tablecloth, causing Dorothy to jump back with an indignant gasp. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," I exclaimed, grabbing napkins to dab at the spreading stain. In the confusion of waiters rushing over and Dorothy complaining about her dress, I switched our glasses with the smooth precision of someone who'd spent years managing IV lines and medical equipment under pressure. My full glass became hers, her nearly empty one became mine. Dorothy, distracted by the fuss she was making over a tiny drop on her designer dress, didn't notice. Marcus was too busy apologizing to the staff and asking for clean napkins to see the switch. Tyler was helping Grace move her chair back from the wet tablecloth, and in the chaos, my small act of self-preservation went completely undetected. "I'll just be a minute," I said, heading for the restroom with my purse clutched tightly. My hands shook as I locked the bathroom stall door behind me. I pulled out my phone and called Lisa, my former colleague, who still worked nights at Mercy General. She answered on the second ring. "Zoe, what's wrong? You sound—" "Lisa, I need you to be ready. I'm at Le Bernardin. My husband just put something in my drink. I switched glasses with his mother, but if something happens, if someone comes in. Jesus Christ. Are you safe right now? Should I call the police? Not yet. I need to know what it was first. But if an ambulance gets called to the restaurant, make sure you're on duty. Please. I'm here all night. Zoe, get out of there. Leave now. I can't. Not yet. I need to see this through. I need to know what he was planning. I hung up despite her protests and splashed cold water on my face. The woman in the mirror looked pale but determined. 8 years of my life, 2 children, everything I'd built with this man, and he'd just tried to drug me. The why would come later. Right now, I had to survive the next few hours. Walking back to the table, I noticed Dorothy had already been given a fresh glass of wine. My original glass, now hers, sat before her place setting. She was holding court, telling a story about her charity committee, while Marcus watched me return with an expression I couldn't read. "Feeling better?" he asked, pulling out my chair with exaggerated courtesy. "Much better," I said, settling back into my seat and picking up my switched glass. "Please, Dorothy, don't let me interrupt your story." She needed no further encouragement, launching back into her tale about the country club's fundraising drama. I sipped my wine slowly, watching Dorothy drink from hers liberally, as she always did, her gestures becoming more animated with each sip. Marcus kept glancing at me, tiny furrows of confusion appearing between his eyebrows when I showed no signs of whatever he'd expected. 20 minutes passed. Our appetizers arrived. Dorothy ordered a second glass of wine before she'd finished the first, and I watched Marcus's jaw tighten. He couldn't say anything without seeming strange, couldn't suggest she slow down without drawing attention. The irony was delicious, even through my terror. "You know," Dorothy said, her words just beginning to slur slightly, "I was just telling Jennifer the other day that marriage is about evolution. People change, needs change. Marcus, remember when you dated her? Such a perfect match, everyone said. And now look, she's single again, so successful, so sophisticated." Grace kicked Tyler under the table. Tyler cleared his throat. "Mom, that's enough." "I'm just saying," Dorothy continued, waving her glass for emphasis. "Sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes what seemed right 8 years ago isn't right anymore. Zoe. Dear, you understand, don't you? You must see how Marcus has evolved beyond, well." The sentence hung unfinished as Dorothy suddenly blinked rapidly, her hand going to her forehead. "I feel, is it warm in here?" "Mom." Marcus leaned forward and I saw real concern flash across his face before he controlled it. "Are you all right?" "Just a little dizzy. This wine must be stronger than usual." She laughed, but it sounded forced. Sweat beaded on her upper lip despite the restaurant's cool temperature. I reached over and touched her hand with practiced medical concern. "Dorothy, you don't look well. Have you eaten today?" "Of course I've eaten," she snapped, then immediately softened. "Actually, no. I skipped lunch for my hair appointment. Maybe that's it." But I could feel her pulse racing under my fingers, see the way her pupils were dilating unevenly. Whatever Marcus had put in that glass was strong, and Dorothy had consumed most of it in less than 30 minutes. My switched glass sat barely touched in front of me. "I think we should get you some air," Grace suggested, her pregnancy making her more attuned to physical discomfort. No, I'm fine. We're celebrating." Dorothy tried to stand and swayed dangerously. Tyler jumped up to steady her, and her glass tumbled over the remaining wine, spreading across the fresh tablecloth. "Mom, you're not fine," Tyler said firmly. "We need to get you checked out." "Don't be ridiculous. I just need—" Dorothy's eyes rolled back and she collapsed into Tyler's arms. The restaurant erupted in controlled chaos. Waiters appeared with cool towels, the manager offered to call an ambulance, and other diners tried not to stare while obviously watching everything. Marcus's face had gone pale, his eyes darting between his unconscious mother and me with growing panic. "Did she take any medication?" a waiter asked. "Any allergies we should know about?" "No, nothing," Marcus answered automatically, then caught himself. "I mean, she takes blood pressure medication, but nothing that would—" I'd already knelt beside Dorothy, my nursing training taking over. Her pulse was rapid and thready, breathing shallow but steady, skin clammy to the touch. Classic signs of benzodiazepine intoxication. "We need an ambulance," I said calmly, looking directly at Marcus. "Now." Grace was already on the phone with 911. Tyler cradled his mother's head in his lap, looking lost. Marcus stood frozen, his lawyer's mind probably racing through implications and possibilities. I saw the moment he realized what must have happened, saw him look at the spilled wine, at my barely touched glass, at his mother's empty one. "What did she drink?" he asked me quietly, his voice tight. "The same wine we all did," I replied evenly. "You ordered it yourself, remember?" The EMTs arrived within minutes, professional and efficient. I recognized one of them, Carter, from my hospital days. He nodded at me as he began his assessment. "Ma'am, can you tell me what happened?" he asked, while checking Dorothy's vitals. Marcus started to speak, but I cut him off smoothly. "She was drinking wine, complained of dizziness, then collapsed. She mentioned skipping lunch. She's on blood pressure medication, lisinopril, I believe. Any chance of interaction with something else? Did she seem normal before?" I glanced at Marcus, letting him see I was making a choice. "Actually, now that you mention it, she did seem a bit off when she arrived. Almost euphoric, talking very rapidly." Carter's partner was already starting an IV. "We need to take her in. Possible drug interaction or overdose. Who's coming with her?" "I will," Tyler said immediately. "I'll drive Grace and follow you," I offered, then turned to Marcus. "You should ride with your mother. She'll want to see you when she wakes up." Marcus looked trapped. He couldn't refuse without seeming callous, but I could see he desperately wanted to control the situation, to speak to me privately. "Maybe you should come too. Someone needs to get our cars from the valet and call the babysitter about being late," I said reasonably. "Go with your mother, Marcus. She needs you." As the EMTs loaded Dorothy onto the stretcher, I quietly handed Carter the wine glass she'd been drinking from, wrapped in a napkin. "You might want to test this," I whispered. "I'm a nurse, remember? Something's not right here." Carter's eyes sharpened, but he took the glass without comment, sealing it in an evidence bag with practiced ease. Dorothy moaned as they wheeled her out. Her usually perfect hair-disheveled makeup smeared. Marcus followed, looking back at me once with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear. In the parking lot, I took Grace's arm to steady her as we walked. "Are you okay? This stress can't be good for the baby." "I'm fine, just shocked. Dorothy's always been so healthy, so controlled. To see her like that." Grace shuddered. "Zoe, can I ask you something? Professional to professional." She was a social worker, dealt with difficult situations daily. "Of course. Did you notice anything strange about Marcus tonight before Dorothy collapsed?" I chose my words carefully. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. He just seemed watching you oddly. And the way he ordered for you without asking, the toast that felt more like a threat than a celebration. Tyler mentioned Marcus has been acting strange lately, missing family dinners, being secretive." "Marriage is complicated," I said neutrally, but I squeezed her hand in thanks for the observation. During the drive to the hospital, I used the Bluetooth to call the babysitter and explain we'd be late. Then, at a red light, I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I opened Marcus's gym bag in the back seat. Under his workout clothes and protein shakers, I found what I was looking for and feared. 3 more vials of clear liquid, unmarked but carefully wrapped. A prescription bottle with someone else's name filled with small white pills. And underneath it all, a folder with insurance documents, beneficiary changes dated just last week, and a power of attorney form with my signature. Except I'd never signed it. The signature was close, but not quite right. My phone rang. "Marcus." "Where are you?" His voice was strained. "Almost there. How's Dorothy?" "They're running tests. Zoe, we need to talk." "Yes," I agreed. "We certainly do." I pulled into the hospital parking lot, my hands steady now. Grace looked at me with concern. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm better than I've been in months," I said truthfully. "Let's go see how Dorothy's doing." The emergency department was familiar territory, though being here as a family member felt surreal. We found Tyler in the waiting room, his head in his hands. He looked up when we entered, relief flooding his face at seeing Grace. They took her back immediately. Said her vitals were all over the place. What the hell happened? Where's Marcus? I asked instead of answering. He went to make some calls. Business emergency, apparently. Tyler's tone made it clear what he thought of his brother handling business during a medical emergency. I left Grace with Tyler and walked to the nurse's station where Lisa was waiting for me. She pulled me aside immediately. The EMT gave me a glass. Said you wanted it tested. Quietly, yes. And Lisa, if they find something, make sure the police are called. Don't let Marcus talk them out of it. Zoe, what's going on? I think my husband just tried to poison me, but his mother drank it instead. Lisa's face went white. Holy shit. Are you safe? I am now. He can't try anything in a hospital full of witnesses. Dr. Rodriguez, whom I'd worked with for years, emerged from the treatment area. He recognized me immediately, and his expression softened from professional to concerned. Zoe, I heard you were here. Your mother-in-law is stable, but showing signs of benzodiazepine toxicity, specifically Rohypnol. We've given her flumazenil to counteract it. She's lucky. The dose she ingested could have been fatal for someone with her blood pressure issues. Rohypnol, I repeated loud enough for Tyler to hear. The date rape drug. Among other things, yes. The police have been notified. They'll want to speak with everyone who was present at dinner. He paused, studying me carefully. Zoe, is there anything you want to tell me as a friend? Just run every test. Document everything. And maybe run a comparison on the contents of that glass with... I pulled one of the vials from my pocket, having grabbed them from Marcus's bag. This. Dr. Rodriguez took it carefully, his expression grave. I'll have the lab rush it. Marcus appeared around the corner, stopping short when he saw me talking to the doctor. His designer suit was rumpled, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked afraid. How's my mother? He asked Dr. Rodriguez, ignoring me completely. Stable. She ingested a dangerous amount of Rohypnol. The police will want to know how that happened. Marcus's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. That's impossible. We were just having dinner. Family dinner. Marcus, I said quietly, stepping forward. We should talk. Privately. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw him trying to calculate what I'd done, what his next move should be. The man who'd kissed me goodbye this morning, who'd shared my bed for 8 years, who'd fathered my children, was a stranger wearing a familiar face. Yes, he agreed finally. We should. I led Marcus to the hospital chapel, a small, quiet room I'd often passed during my nursing days, but never entered. It was empty at this hour, just rows of uncomfortable chairs facing a non-denominational altar. He followed me reluctantly, his footsteps echoing on the linoleum. Sit, I said, not a request but a command. Something in my voice must have surprised him, because he obeyed without argument. I remained standing, looking down at this man I'd promised to love forever. I know what you did. Zoe, I don't know what you think. Stop. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken of his gym bag contents. 3 more vials. The fake insurance documents. The forged power of attorney. Should I continue? His mask finally cracked completely. The calculating lawyer disappeared, replaced by something desperate and ugly. You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Explain it to me then. Explain why you tried to drug your wife on your anniversary. Explain why you've been setting me up to look mentally unstable. Explain Jennifer. He flinched at the name.
How did you? Your mother never could keep a secret when she was trying to hurt me. All those mentions of Jennifer, those late nights at the office. How long, Marcus? How long have you been planning this? It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. My voice echoed in the small space, and I forced myself to calm down. 8 years, Marcus. 8 years, 2 children, and you were going to what? Make me disappear. Lock me away. Kill me. No. He stood abruptly, pacing to the small stained glass window. Not kill. Never that. Just You'd become unstable, paranoid. The medication was supposed to help with that. Small doses over time, memory issues, confusion. The doctors would diagnose dementia or early onset something. You'd need care, professional care. The kids would be better off. With Jennifer as their stepmother. The pieces clicked into place.
That's what this was about. You wanted to have me committed so you could marry your partner's daughter. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Donald made it clear that family connections matter. Jennifer and I, we make sense. For the firm, for my future. But I couldn't just divorce you. The prenup your parents insisted on, remember, you'd get half of everything plus alimony. And the children's shared custody would mean Jennifer and I couldn't travel, couldn't build the life we planned. So you decided to drug me instead. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Did Jennifer know? His silence was answer enough. She knew. God Marcus, she knew and approved. What kind of people are you? People who understand how the world really works. He spun to face me, his mask completely gone now. You were happy playing house being a suburban mom. I need more. I deserve more. The partnership, the connections, the power. Jennifer can give me that. You just want to garden and bake cookies and pretend that's enough. It was enough. It should have been enough. For you maybe, not for me, not anymore. The chapel door opened. 2 police officers entered, followed by Dr. Rodriguez and Carter, the EMT. Marcus Preston, the older officer, stepped forward. You're under arrest for attempted poisoning, assault, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Marcus looked at me, shock replacing arrogance. You called them. No, the hospital did when they found Rohypnol in your mother's system. But I did give them the evidence, including the vials from your gym bag and the security footage I asked the restaurant to save showing you putting something in my drink. Security footage. You sat us at the best table, remember, the one directly under the security camera. Your need to show off will be your downfall. As the officers cuffed him, Marcus's composure finally shattered completely. This is a mistake. I want my lawyer. Jennifer will verify I was with her those nights. This is all a misunderstanding. Save it for the station, the younger officer said, leading him out. Dr. Rodriguez lingered. Zoe, are you all right? I will be. How's Dorothy? Awake and asking for you, actually. She's emotional. I found Dorothy propped up in bed, looking every one of her 62 years without her perfect makeup and styled hair. Tyler sat on one side, Grace on the other. When she saw me, tears started rolling down her cheeks. Zoe. Oh, God. Zoe, I'm so sorry. I pulled a chair close to her bed. What are you sorry for, Dorothy? I knew. Not about the drugging, I swear I didn't know that. But about Jennifer. I encouraged it. I thought she'd be better for him, better for his career. I was so cruel to you, trying to drive you away, make you feel inadequate so you'd leave on your own. Why? I asked simply. Because you were never part of the plan. Marcus was supposed to marry someone connected, someone who could elevate the family standing. You were just a nurse from Ohio. But he loved you, really loved you at first. It made me angry, that love. It wasn't practical, wasn't strategic. So you helped destroy it. I did. I pushed Jennifer at him every chance I got, reminded him of what he was missing, made him see you as a burden instead of a blessing. When he started complaining about you a few months ago, I was thrilled. I thought finally he was seeing sense. He tried to poison me, Dorothy. Your son tried to destroy my mind so he could lock me away and steal my children. I know. Her voice broke completely. My God, I know. The police told me. They found text messages with Jennifer planning it all. 6 months they've been planning this. If you hadn't switched the glasses, you'd be planning my funeral or my commitment ceremony right now. Dorothy reached for my hand, and surprisingly, I let her take it. I destroyed my son. My ambition, my snobbery, my constant pushing for more, better, higher. I created a monster who thought people were disposable when they no longer served his purpose. Tyler spoke for the first time. Mom, Marcus made his own choices. Did he, or did I teach him that choices should only be made based on advancement and gain, Zoe? I'll testify. Against him, against Jennifer, against all of it. I'll tell them everything. Grace squeezed my shoulder. What about the kids? They're with the babysitter. They don't know anything yet. I stood, exhaustion hitting me suddenly. I need to go home. I need to figure out how to explain to my babies that their father is a monster. He's not a monster, Tyler said quietly. He's a man who lost his way. But Zoe, Grace, and I were here. The kids still have family who love them. Real family. Grace added her hand on her belly. Their cousin will need them, and they'll need stable figures in their lives. I looked at these people, my in-laws who'd just become my allies, and felt something I hadn't expected. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. We were all victims of Marcus's ambition in different ways. I need to call a lawyer, I said practically. Sandra Kim, Dorothy said immediately. Best divorce attorney in the state. She went to school with my sister. I'll call her tonight, tell her to expect you. Why would you help me? Because it's the first right thing I've done in years, and because those babies deserve better than what Marcus and I gave them. Lisa appeared in the doorway. Zoe, the police want your statement, and there's someone here from Child Services just to check on the kids' welfare given the circumstances. The next few hours blurred together. Police statements, phone calls to lawyers, a visit from Child Services who determined the children were safe in my care. By the time I got home, it was past 3 in the morning. The babysitter, a college student named Amy, was asleep on the couch. She woke when I entered, took one look at my face and asked no questions beyond whether I was okay. I checked on my children standing in their doorways, watching them sleep. Emma had kicked off her covers as usual, her stuffed unicorn clutched tightly. Noah was curled in a ball thumb in his mouth despite our efforts to break the habit. They looked so peaceful, so innocent, unaware, that their world had fundamentally changed. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and made lists. Lawyer appointments, therapy for the kids, financial accounts to secure passwords to change locks to replace. The sun rose on a different life than the one I'd known yesterday. The next days moved with surreal speed. Sandra Kim turned out to be a tiny Korean woman with the demeanor of a pit bull and the strategic mind of a chess grandmaster. She had emergency custody orders filed before noon, forensic accountants investigating Marcus's hidden assets, by 2 and a restraining order in place by dinner. He's been moving money for 6 months, she told me, spreading financial documents across my dining room table. $300,000 into an account in Jennifer's name. Another $100,000 in cryptocurrency he thought we wouldn't find. The apartment in Manhattan bought with marital assets, but titled in a shell company. Can we get it back? Every penny plus damages for emotional distress, attempted murder, and fraud. He forged your signature on multiple documents. That's federal crime territory. He's looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted on all charges. The media got hold of the story within 48 hours. Local prominent lawyer attempts to poison wife, mother poisoned instead. The headlines wrote themselves. Reporters camped outside my house until Sandra got an injunction. Marcus's firm immediately fired him and issued a statement distancing themselves. Jennifer was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Tyler and Grace became my shields handling grocery runs and school pickups when the attention got too intense. Dorothy, released from the hospital, moved into a hotel nearby and began the long process of rebuilding our relationship. She attended every court hearing, sitting behind me in visible support, her presence, a public rejection of her son's actions. The children were the hardest part. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that Daddy won't be coming home because he tried to hurt Mommy? Emma knew something was wrong, had always been sensitive to emotional undercurrents. She started having nightmares, climbing into my bed at 2 a.m., asking if the bad people were coming. Noah just kept asking when Daddy would be back from his trip. Each time broke my heart a little more. I found a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. Dr. Brennan was a grandmother type who had a way of making difficult conversations feel safe. She met with the kids twice a week, using play therapy and art to help them process their new reality. Children are resilient, she told me, but they need honesty at an age-appropriate level. Emma is old enough to understand that Daddy made bad choices and has to face consequences. Noah just needs to know he's safe and loved. 3 weeks after the anniversary dinner, I had to face Marcus in court for the preliminary hearing. He'd lost weight, his expensive suit replaced by a county jail jumpsuit. When our eyes met across the courtroom, I searched for any sign of the man I'd married. Instead, I saw only calculation, anger, and oddly disappointment that his plan had failed. Jennifer was there too in the gallery, trying to look supportive, but mainly looking scared. Her father had distanced himself publicly, the firm's reputation taking a hit from the scandal. She'd hired her own lawyer, claiming Marcus had manipulated her, that she never knew he intended to hurt me. The text messages suggested otherwise. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that the drugging was a momentary lapse in judgment, that Marcus had been under immense stress, that he'd never intended serious harm. Sandra destroyed that narrative with precision, presenting evidence of months of planning, the forged documents, the insurance policies, the systematic gaslighting designed to make me appear mentally unstable. The judge denied bail. Marcus would remain in custody until trial. As they led him away, he turned back once. "This isn't over," he mouthed at me. But it was. At least his part in my story was. Dorothy testified. As promised, her voice steady as she detailed the conversations with Marcus about Jennifer, his complaints about me, his ambitions that had grown increasingly ruthless. When asked why she was testifying against her own son, she looked directly at him. "Because I failed him as a mother. I taught him that people were stepping stones to success instead of human beings deserving of respect. I won't fail my grandchildren the same way." The trial took 4 months. 4 months of evidence, testimonies, and revelations. Marcus had been plotting for longer than 6 months, it turned out. He'd been slowly poisoning me with small doses of benzodiazepines for weeks, just enough to make me seem tired and confused. The mysterious illnesses I'd attributed to stress were deliberate. The therapy appointment he'd made wasn't with a therapist, but with a psychiatrist known for quick diagnoses of mental instability. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all charges. Attempted murder, assault, fraud, conspiracy. Jennifer got 5 years for conspiracy and fraud, though she'd probably serve 2 with good behavior. Marcus got 18 years, no possibility of parole for 12. When the verdict was read, I felt nothing. Not relief, not joy, just empty. 8 years of my life had been a lie, and now I had to rebuild from nothing. The divorce was finalized 2 months after the criminal trial. Sandra had been ruthless in negotiations, though there wasn't much to negotiate with Marcus heading to federal prison. I got the house, full custody of the children with no visitation rights for Marcus, 70% of all assets, including the hidden ones, and both the retirement accounts. The Manhattan apartment Marcus had bought for Jennifer was sold, the proceeds going into trust funds for Emma and Noah. The $300,000 he'd moved into Jennifer's account was returned with interest. The firm, trying to minimize damage, offered a settlement for emotional distress caused by their employees' actions. Sandra negotiated it up to $500,000. "You're financially secure," she told me. "The kids' college funds are set, the house is paid off, and you have enough to live comfortably while you figure out what's next." What was next? For the first few months, next was just surviving. Getting the kids to school, making meals, attending therapy, both mine and theirs. Dr. Brennan had recommended someone for me, a woman named Patricia, who specialized in betrayal, trauma, and domestic abuse survivors. "But he never hit me," I said in our first session. "Physical violence is only one form of abuse," Patricia replied. "What Marcus did was psychological torture, medical assault, and emotional terrorism. Don't minimize it because the bruises were invisible." Slowly, very slowly, we rebuilt our lives. Emma's nightmares decreased. Noah stopped asking about Daddy as often. I returned to nursing part-time, just 3 shifts a week at a different hospital where my story wasn't the prime gossip. The routine helped the familiar rhythm of caring for others while learning to care for myself again. Dorothy became an unexpected ally in healing. She attended her own therapy, working through decades of toxic beliefs and behaviors. She asked permission before visiting, respected my boundaries, and never pushed for more than I could give. With the kids, she was a different grandmother, present and loving without the criticism and manipulation that had defined her before. "I'm learning," she told me one afternoon as we watched the kids play in the yard. "Learning who I am without the ambition, the snobbery, the constant need to climb higher. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time." Tyler and Grace's baby arrived in spring, a healthy girl they named Lily. Watching Emma and Noah meet their cousins, seeing the joy in their faces, reminded me that Marcus's poison hadn't destroyed everything. Family could be rebuilt, redefined, made stronger through choice rather than obligation. 6 months after the trial, I was grocery shopping when I saw her. Jennifer buying wine at the store I'd switched to specifically to avoid people I knew. She saw me at the same moment, freezing with a bottle of Merlot in her hand. We stood there, two women whose lives had been destroyed by the same man's ambition, though in very different ways. She approached slowly, like I might bolt or attack. "Zoe, I wanted to write you a letter. My lawyer said not to, but I wanted to say—" "Don't," I said quietly. "Whatever you want to say, I don't need to hear it. You knew he was married. You knew he had children. You knew what he was planning to do to me. Your apology, if that's what this is, means nothing." "I loved him," she said as if that explained everything. "So did I. The difference is, I didn't try to destroy anyone for that love." I left her standing there with her wine and her regrets. Some bridges weren't meant to be rebuilt. A year after that anniversary dinner, I sat in the same restaurant with Lisa, Tyler, Grace, and surprisingly Dorothy. We weren't celebrating anything specific, just the fact that we'd survived, that life had continued, that healing was possible even after betrayal that deep. "I have something to tell you all," I said as dessert arrived. "I'm starting a nonprofit, a resource center for women experiencing domestic abuse, specifically non-physical abuse, financial manipulation, psychological torture, medical assault, all the things that don't leave visible bruises but destroy lives just the same." Lisa raised her wine glass filled with actual wine that no one had tampered with. "To new beginnings. To courage," Tyler added. "To family, real family," Grace said, smiling at me. Dorothy was last. "To forgiveness. Not for those who don't deserve it, but for ourselves so we can move forward." We clinked glasses, and I thought about how different this was from that toast a year ago. No hidden agendas, no poison, no lies. Just people who'd chosen to show up for each other when everything fell apart. The Resource Center opened 6 months later. I named it Phoenix House because, cliché or not, we were all rising from ashes. The first woman who walked through our doors was a teacher whose husband had been drugging her coffee to make her seem incompetent at work. The second was a lawyer whose wife had been stealing her identity for years. Each story was different, but the pattern was the same. Trust betrayed by those who claimed to love them most. Emma, now 7, made a sign for my office in art class. "My mom helps people," it said in purple crayon with butterflies all around it. I hung it behind my desk where I could see it every day, a reminder of why I'd survived, why I'd fought, why I'd refused to let Marcus's poison define our future. Noah, 5 now, didn't remember much about his father. Sometimes that made me sad, thinking about the good moments that were now tainted. But mostly I was grateful. He would grow up knowing only the love that surrounded him, now the family we'd chosen, and built the strength that came from surviving the worst and choosing to help others do the same. Marcus had 20 more years to think about his choices. I had a lifetime to live freely without him. 3 years have passed since that anniversary dinner that changed everything. 3 years of therapy, growth, and slow reconstruction of trust. I'm 37 now, and sometimes I catch glimpses of myself in mirrors and don't recognize the woman staring back. She's stronger than the one who sat in that restaurant, sharper, less willing to accept diminishment disguised as love. The Resource Center has grown beyond my wildest dreams. We've helped over 200 women recognize and escape various forms of non-physical abuse. We have lawyers who work pro bono, therapists who understand that bruises on the soul need healing too, and financial advisors who help women reclaim economic independence. Dorothy is our biggest donor, writing checks that would have once gone to country club memberships and designer clothes. It's penance, she told me once. Not for you to forgive me, but for me to live with what I helped create. The relationship between us will never be simple, but it's honest now. She comes for Sunday dinners, teaching Emma to cook recipes that have been in the Preston family for generations, while I teach her that tradition doesn't have to mean tyranny. She reads to Noah his favorite books about dragons and knights, and never once suggests he should be doing something more productive. Tyler and Grace have become the siblings I never had growing up. Tyler especially has worked to distance himself from his brother's legacy, volunteering at the center, speaking at events about how men need to hold other men accountable. He's faced backlash from some of Marcus's old colleagues, but he stands firm. My brother tried to murder his wife, he says simply when questioned. There's no gray area there. Last month I received a letter from prison. Marcus's handwriting still perfectly controlled even from a federal cell. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. It was exactly what I expected. Not an apology, but a manifesto about how I'd ruined his life, destroyed his career, turned his family against him. How Jennifer had abandoned him the moment things got difficult. How prison was beneath someone of his caliber. The last line stuck with me, though. You may have won this round, but you'll never be more than what you were. A small-town nurse who got lucky. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in years. Because he still didn't understand. Being a small-town nurse wasn't something to overcome. It was the foundation of everything that saved me. The medical knowledge that recognized the symptoms, the instincts that made me switch those glasses, the connections at the hospital that ensured evidence was preserved. My ordinary life, the one he'd found so beneath him, was exactly what had defeated his extraordinary evil. I wrote back just once a single line. This small-town nurse put you in federal prison. Imagine what I could have done with a law degree. The children are thriving in ways that still surprise me. Emma, now 9, is fierce and protective, a little warrior who stands up to bullies and includes the lonely kids at lunch. She knows her father is in prison for hurting people, an age-appropriate truth that Dr. Brennan helped us navigate. Sometimes she asks if badness is genetic, if she might grow up to hurt people too. Choices aren't genetic, I tell her. Every day you get to choose who you want to be. Noah, 7, is gentler, an artist who sees beauty everywhere. He doesn't remember Marcus at all now, which is both a blessing and a strange grief. Tyler has become his male role model, teaching him that strength includes kindness, that real men protect rather than prey. Jennifer served 18 months before being released on good behavior. I heard through legal channels that she'd moved to Seattle, changed her name, started over. Part of me hopes she learned something, but mostly, I just hope never to think of her again. Some people are chapters you close rather than lessons you learn. The nightmares have mostly stopped, though. Anniversaries are still hard. Not just our wedding anniversary, but that October date when everything shattered. Lisa always knows to check in Tyler. And Grace invites us for dinner. Dorothy sends flowers with notes that say simple things like, thinking of you, without trying to fix or minimize. I started dating again 6 months ago. Nothing serious, just coffee with a pediatrician named James, who volunteers at the center. He knows my story, everyone does, but he doesn't treat me like broken glass. We talk about books and hiking trails and whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Normal things. Beautiful, ordinary things. Emma asked if I was going to marry him. I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe someday I'll marry someone. Make sure he's nice, she said seriously, and that he doesn't put bad things in your drinks. My heart broke a little at her matter-of-fact awareness, but I pulled her close. I promised to be very careful. And you know what? I have you and Noah and Uncle Tyler and Aunt Grace and even Grandma Dorothy watching out for me now. And Lily, she added, because her 2-year-old cousin had become her favorite person. And Lily, I agreed. The truth is, I don't know if I'll ever fully trust romantic love again. Patricia says that's normal, that trust can be rebuilt, but it takes time and the right person earning it slowly. For now, I'm content with the love I have, the family we've built from the ruins of what was supposed to be perfect. Marcus has 17 more years in prison. 17 years where my children will graduate, go to college, maybe get married themselves. 17 years where I'll continue building Phoenix House, helping women recognize the poison before they drink it. 17 years of freedom to become whoever I choose to be without someone trying to reshape me into their ambition. Sometimes I think about the woman I was 8 years ago, walking down that aisle in a designer dress paid for by Dorothy, believing I was living a fairy tale. I want to whisper to her to pay attention, to see the red flags already waving. But then Emma laughs at something Noah drew, or a woman walks into Phoenix House and says, "I think something's wrong, but everyone says I'm imagining it," and I realize that naive bride had to exist for this stronger woman to emerge. The thing about poison is that if it doesn't kill you, your body builds antibodies. You become immune to that particular toxin. You recognize its smell, its taste, the way it clouds clear water. You can teach others what to look for, how to switch the glasses when necessary, how to survive when someone who claims to love you tries to destroy you. Marcus thought he was playing chess, moving pieces strategically toward his endgame. He forgot that in chess, the queen is the most powerful piece. And sometimes when you threaten the queen, she doesn't just escape. She switches the board entirely. That October night, I saved my own life with a small act of self-preservation that my husband never saw coming. But more than that, I saved my children's lives, their future, their ability to grow up knowing that love shouldn't require you to shrink yourself to fit someone else's ambition. The wine glasses from that night sit in evidence storage, somewhere waiting for appeals that will go nowhere. But I don't need them to remember. Every morning when I wake up in my own bed in my own house, making my own choices, I remember that I looked poison in the eye and refused to drink it. Some anniversaries celebrate the past. That one, the one that ended in chaos and revelation, celebrated my future. A future where Dorothy can admit she was wrong, where Tyler and Grace show my children what healthy love looks like, where hundreds of women find strength in Phoenix House, where two small humans grow up knowing their mother fought for them with everything she had. Marcus gave me Rohypnol on our anniversary. I gave myself freedom. And in the end, that's the only toast worth making. To survival, to strength, to switching the glasses when someone tries to poison your life. To the chaos that comes from revealing truth, to the women who refuse to disappear quietly into the night their abusers planned for them, to all of us who saw the poison coming and chose to live instead. The truth about that night isn't just that I switched the wine glasses. It's that I finally understood the real poison wasn't in the drink. It was in the slow erosion of self, the daily diminishments, the thousand small deaths of identity that happen when someone claims to love you while planning your destruction. Dorothy nearly died from the Rohypnol meant for me, but in a strange way, it brought her back to life too. She woke up from that poison to see what her ambitions had created in her son. Tyler found the courage to stand against his brother. Grace became the sister I needed. Even Lisa, who'd worried about me for months, finally had proof that her concerns weren't just paranoia. The ripples from that switched glass spread further than Marcus could have imagined. Phoenix House exists because of that night. Hundreds of women have been saved because one man's poison was revealed. Laws in our state have been strengthened around coercive control and medical assault. Marcus's case became a cautionary tale taught in law schools about what happens when ambition becomes sociopathy. I think about poison differently now, not just as something slipped into drinks, but as the slow, toxic drip of contempt disguised as concern. The way Marcus would touch my cheek tenderly while telling me I looked tired. How Dorothy's compliments always carried razor edges. How isolation can be administered in doses so small you don't realize you're suffocating until you're already unconscious. But I think about antidotes differently too. How truth can neutralize lies if you're brave enough to speak it. How chosen family can heal wounds that blood family created. How helping others transform their trauma can transform your own. How a small-town nurse with observational skills and quick reflexes can topple a corporate lawyer's carefully constructed crime. Marcus is prisoner number 47829 now. His designer suits replaced with standard issue, his corner office with a 6x8 cell, his power lunches with cafeteria meals. Jennifer lost her law license and had to start over in a new city with a new name. Dorothy lost her son but found her soul. And I lost the life I thought I wanted, but gained the life I actually deserved. Every October on the anniversary of that dinner, I take my children out for a special meal. Not to the same restaurant, never there, but somewhere bright and loud and full of life. We toast with juice boxes and soda, celebrating nothing more complicated than being together, being safe, being free. Emma always makes the first toast. To Mom, she says, raising her apple juice high for keeping us safe. To us, Noah adds, because even at 7 he understands that we're a team. To the truth, I finish, though they don't fully understand what that means yet. Someday when they're older, I'll tell them the whole story. How their father tried to poison me, how their grandmother drank it instead, how that terrible night led to Phoenix House and dozens of saved lives. I'll tell them that sometimes the worst moments become the foundation for the best outcomes. That strength isn't about never being vulnerable, but about choosing how to respond when someone exploits that vulnerability. But for now, they just know that Mom is strong, that Uncle Tyler is funny, that Aunt Grace gives the best hugs, that Grandma Dorothy makes amazing cookies, and that some people make bad choices, but that doesn't mean we stop choosing good. Marcus thought he was writing our ending that night. He'd planned it perfectly, each piece moving toward my destruction and his new beginning with Jennifer. He forgot that in every story about poison, there's always the possibility that someone switches the glasses. He forgot that the intended victim might be smarter than the poisoner. He forgot that small-town nurses know exactly what Rohypnol looks like when it dissolves in wine. Most of all, he forgot that when you try to poison someone slowly over months, you're actually teaching them to recognize the taste of betrayal. Every small dose of contempt, every measured portion of financial control, every calculated drop of isolation was preparing me for that moment when I saw him tip the vial into my glass. In trying to destroy me gradually, he'd trained me to survive him completely. That's the thing about poison and antidotes, about toxins and immunity, about betrayal and survival. Sometimes the very thing meant to kill you becomes the catalyst for your strongest life. Sometimes switching the glasses isn't just about avoiding the poison, but about exposing the poisoner. And sometimes, just sometimes, an anniversary meant to be an ending becomes instead the first day of everything that comes after. So here's what I want to leave you with if you're watching this and something resonates. If you recognize the taste of poison in your own glass, trust your instincts. That feeling that something's wrong, it's not paranoia. That voice saying you deserve better, it's not selfish. That moment when you want to switch the glasses literally or metaphorically, that's not betrayal. It's survival. It's strength. It's the beginning of your real story, the one where you're not just a character in someone else's ambition, but the author of your own life. The one where you don't drink the poison. The one where you live. What would you do if you saw someone you loved trying to poison you? Would you have the courage to switch the glasses? Share your thoughts below, and if this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need to hear that survival is possible, that switching the glasses is an act of courage, not betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story. May you always have the strength to recognize poison when you see it, and the wisdom to refuse to drink it. Stay safe. Trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply switch the glasses.